You are listening to Viewpoints from PlaceCloud. Cultural researchers tell stories of places from around the world. For the full multimedia experience and to support the creators you enjoy, visit placecloud.io.
You might think that to visit a city in medieval times was to wade through streets covered in filth, dodging animal waste, offal, and raw sewage. In fact, medieval towns were more sanitary than we imagine. People from all sectors of society took pride in keeping their streets and markets clean, and although they didn't have the advanced technologies we enjoy today, they worked hard to reduce dirt and promote health. One means of doing this was through the construction of public toilets. It has been estimated that there were at least 13 public latrines in London alone, and similar facilities have been recorded in almost every medieval city. Perhaps the most impressive of these latrines was known as Whittington's Longhouse. The building stood very close to the present-day Belwharf Lane, between Cannon Street Station and Southwark Bridge, on the site now occupied by the Little Ship Club. At that time, the Longhouse was built over a channel which was flushed each day by the Thames high tides, and it seems to have had room for up to 128 patrons at a time, with 64 seats for men and 64 for women. This House of Easement, as it was called, was built with money left by Richard, that is Dick, Whittington. Immortalised in Panto, the real Dick Whittington was a merchant and politician who became Lord Mayor of London 4 times. Although he may not actually have had a cat, he did have a vast fortune. When he died in 1423, he left money to an impressive variety of charitable causes, including the Longhouse, which also had 5 or 6 rooms for the poor on the storey above. The Longhouse was to be maintained by the City of London, with money from rents that he had also bequeathed to them. The Longhouse seems to have functioned excellently for a couple of centuries, but it burned down in the Great Fire of 1666. At this point, it was rebuilt on a much smaller scale, with only 12 seats in total. The Longhouse then became the subject of land squabbles, as a succession of tenants built over and around the latrines, blocking off their water supply from the Thames and making them unpleasant to use. These problems were compounded by the fact that the city had stopped providing lanterns and candlelight inside and outside the Longhouse, as a result of which, reports said, many inconveniences have happened. Matters came to a head in the summer of 1690, when 4 men were appointed to investigate the feud between the tenant, who had locked up the Longhouse, and the other members of the parish who wanted it reopened. The investigators recommended that the tenant should reopen the Longhouse and dig out the channel underneath which had been built over. The Court of Aldermen affirmed the investigators' reports, and though complaints continued, so it seems did the Longhouse. Leases through the 18th and into the 19th century mention the houses of easement, protecting them from interference by the tenant and reserving them for the use of the parish as Whittington had intended several centuries earlier. The final mention of the Longhouse is in a lease of 1851, at which point the site was known as Golden Hart Wharf. We don't know exactly when the Longhouse closed permanently, but it isn't mentioned in a lease of 1935. For a period in the 1970s, the site was occupied, appropriately enough, by the Public Cleansing Department. Nowadays, if you're caught short in Vintry Ward, you can still find some relief at the nearby Belwharf Lane public toilets.